music. So, let's see. We are back onto Randall because I am going to explain to you why I think this game would be interesting to stream. It is a platformer indie game that recently came out quite a few weeks ago. And the pull that it had to me was the idea, the blatant telling from the creators of the game that the main character has schizophrenia. And at least one of his schizophrenic personalities or images is telling him what he should be doing. So obviously there's some creative freedom when games, movies, TV shows, books portray different types of mental illnesses and disorders. So the general gist of what schizophrenia is that it is a chronic and incredibly severe mental disorder that truly affects the way that a person is able to think and behave and act. And especially when the people who suffer from schizophrenia are in the middle of an episode, it seems as though they have totally lost touch with what is going on in actual reality because their perception of things gets skewed. And it's very disabling for them. So the reason why their grip on reality gets skewed is because schizophrenics suffer from hallucinations and delusions. And there are a lot of dysfunctional ways in the way that they think and act because of those issues. So those are called positive symptoms, which means that they are something that add onto them as a person, in the sense of they're a symptom that you can see manifest and it changes them. It's difficult to kind of explain the difference between a positive and a negative symptom. Okay, so a negative symptom would be the way that their moods and their emotions are disrupted. So their inability to speak correctly or at all, and difficulty starting up or sustaining their attention to certain activities. They also have a very flat stare and face, and they have a reduction in their ability to enjoy things. So in that sense, negative symptoms are things that take away their ability to outwardly express what is going on with them, and positive symptoms outwardly express what is going on with them. Does that make sense? And then cognitively, what's going on is that they have an inability to execute high-level thinking, like being able to understand abstract ideas and to look at things in a bigger picture or out of the box, those kind of phrases. And they aren't able to use their working memory. And your working memory is, let's say you've recently learned all of these things that I've just told you, and I tell me one fact of something I just said, and they wouldn't be able to, because they're not able to pay full attention to something because their hallucinations and delusions are affecting their ability to pay attention to reality correctly. So there are a lot of different ways that someone can develop or have schizophrenia manifest. There's no single gene that's really been found that causes the disorder by itself. And it's not really possible to accurately predict through genetic markers that if someone either carries schizophrenia or will have it manifest within them. And there's a lot of different types of environmental factors, especially when someone is developing either in the womb or as a child, that can affect their ability to develop any sort of mental illness or disorder. If they have any sort of socioeconomic factors. So if they are neglected as a child, if they're not given the right type of entertainment or education, like they're not mentally stimulated properly, if there's any sort of malnutrition or problems during and after birth, and also when they're in the womb. And one of the main factors in a lot of schizophrenics is their inability to have a correct balance in the neurotransmitters, dopamine and glutamate, and probably a few others, but those are the two ones that keep coming up whenever they do research on schizophrenics. So basically, dopamine is this neurotransmitter that is released when you get an achievement in a game and you're proud of it. So like that little pop of, hey, you just finished this level, or whenever you eat dark chocolate, or whenever you have sex, or whenever you're just generally you get a reward for doing something well. And glutamate is a little bit more difficult to explain because it kind of does everything. And that seems like such a cop-out, but it's true. It's kind of... How would I explain it? So, glutamate helps you be able to have your thought process work, as well as your ability to move your body physically and to create and manage different memories that you have. It's sort of like a transporter for the other neurotransmitters. It's just involved in so many neurotransmissions that it's like a catch-all. So, I hope that makes sense. I'm not positive. But dopamine is one of the neurotransmitters that I have on my thigh tattoo. I do not have glutamate. Let's see, what else? So schizophrenia is something that can be really scary for those who suffer from it and those who know others that suffer from it. These people have delusions and hallucinations of someone being in the shadows of a room, or someone yelling across a room, or someone whispering in their head to cut themselves because this is the only way that you could tell that what you're experiencing right now is actually reality. And there's a lot of different types of treatments and therapies for those who have schizophrenic tendencies. There's antipsychotics, which is usually the best way to treat it, but it's also one of the most severe things that you can do to yourself. Especially when you're trying to find the right antipsychotic medication schedule to go onto. There's a lot of different side effects that can really affect mood and self-esteem in very negative ways. And different psychosocial treatments, just being able to have different types of coping skills learned from a trained professional for different things that go on in life are really helpful. And making sure that schizophrenics stay with treatment that definitely works for them, because there are a lot of occasions where someone who does suffer from mental illness or disorders will feel fine for a few months and they're like, well, I don't need this thing anymore, and then they go off of their medication and they don't renew it, or they stop going to the therapist to save money, and then they regress in their progression of their treatment. It's the same thing as when you get a schedule of antibiotics from your doctor and they say you have to take it all 14 days, twice a day, even if you feel better after the second day, because you need to make sure that you actually clear out the bacteria that's going on. And one of the best ways that you can, as a layman, as just a regular person, if you know someone with schizophrenia, or if you're just trying to be more understanding of those who have mental illnesses, to realize that these are normal people, just like anyone else. They just happen to suffer and have an additional sort of handicap in life. And we all have different types of neurological or physical issues. that hinder our ability to do things perfectly. Some people just have more extreme versions of these things. So it's best for you to make sure that they get into treatment and they stay in treatment. And remember that when they do have hallucinations or delusions, that it's incredibly real to them, and to not dismiss them as silliness or childishness, because it is very difficult for them to be able to differentiate between those and actual reality, because their perception is so skewed. And it's incredibly important to acknowledge that it's their perception on reality, and you don't have a right, in a sense, to demean that from them. But it is important to make sure that you are supportive and letting them know that, you know, I don't see that guy in the corner. He's not there for me. We're safe. We're the only people in this room. And it helps calm down certain people who do have schizophrenic tendencies. And just be sure to be respectful and supportive. And at the same time, if it becomes too much for you, especially if you're not a trained professional, which the majority of people aren't, to be able to look after your own health, your own well-being, physically, mentally, and emotionally, and step back if you need to. And make sure that the person has a good support group of multiple friends and other sufferers and trained professionals and medication and therapies. So that's my little spiel about schizophrenia and why I want to play this game Randall, because apparently the main character suffers from it. So I think it would be something really interesting for us to kind of explore in a media-driven interpretation of the disease. Obviously, when media does interpret and show different types of mental illnesses, it's usually a grandiose or over-exaggerated way, or only touches on one or two facets of a possibility of how it manifests in other people. So it's not a catch-all of, well, I saw how it works in this game, and you aren't acting like that, so therefore you're not schizophrenic. That's not correct. So, I hope you enjoyed my little spiel. I love giving them. PsychologiQuil. Hype. Stop making me want to go back to psychology and university. Never. I'm going to make everyone a psychologist. Yeah, Dre, I used to know a girl with schizophrenia too. I used to room with her in college. I couldn't handle it. I had to put my own safety and well-being first. I still was friends with her, but I had to get my own room, because she told me that she was cutting herself when I was in class or when I was hanging out with other friends, and she had delusions of having to kill me because I was an imposter or a copy. So, yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to put myself first. Sorry. Let's see. You think you understood it? Great. I am glad that you think you understood me. That is all that matters. Yeah, no, I'm glad she told me too. That's really nice of her. It's the decent human thing to do, you know? All right. I think we are probably ready to get some gameage on you. Ergonomics are so amazing. I love studying that. All right, I want to make sure that I have